This is the iKier K1 Pro Max 48 watt laser power switching cutter and engraver. This is the most advanced laser cutter and engraver we've seen so far. With the world's first power switching laser cutting machine, a motorized Z-axis and smart autofocus, and a super fast engraving speed of 900 millimeters per second. Welcome back to Space Age Tech, where we look at the tech that pushes the limits. So let's get started. As you can see, the frame is mostly assembled, so we should be ready to go in no time. Up first, we have our product manual, installation guide, and software manual. The software manual is especially helpful when configuring your machine. We have our power cables, our air transfer tube, our power adapter. This is a 4.3-inch display. It helps you to operate the machine while offline, meaning you don't need to have your computer hooked up directly onto the machine to operate it. To do this, you would need to copy an engraving or cutting file onto a USB drive and work through the screen to operate it. This is the start of today's review, the laser module. This switchable laser power module allows the user to conveniently control the intensity of the output power. For cutting, you would use the strongest laser output at 48 watts. And you can use the 24-watt output for engraving more delicate design. Switching between those two outputs is as easy as flipping a switch. To add to these features, this laser has a top speed of 900 millimeters per second. It has an integrated Smart Air Assist system. This system can automatically adjust the airflow through light burn. This piece is critical when cutting to help you achieve clean cuts. The Air Assist device will automatically turn on to ensure a smooth process. And as always, safety first. These are our protective goggles. We should be using these anytime the unit is in operation. And here's our frame. Luckily for us, it's assembled, so we don't have to put the axis rails together, which saves us some time. The final assembly will consist of attaching the X-axis rail, which guides the laser, the air assist, the display, the leveling feet, and any accessories if needed. Here's our unit ready to engrave. So let's get started with some tests. Since we really want to test the maximum potential of this machine, we'll be conducting our test in 48 watts using the fine mode, as you can see here from the interface. Here we are testing the homing feature. Here we have the iKier R1 multifunction Chuck rotary for the laser engraver. It can be used to engrave rings, spherical objects, cups with handles, or other irregular items. It's made of aluminum alloy material, and it's a one-piece structure. It's pretty easy to install. This is an add-on accessory, and it's currently retailing at around $170. Now that we're all set up, let's run our engraving test. Let's get started with an MDF engraving test. You can see here we had pretty good results. However, at 100% power, we did get a little bit of a burn-through effect. We don't start seeing clear, sharp lines until about 20 to 30% power. Now let's do a cutting test on MDF. Here are the results for our first try. You can see here we got a lot of great sharp lines, but we didn't see any cut throughs. So we're going to try to do this one more time. We're running one more cutting test on MDF. This time we are using a lower speed. These are our results. By using a slower speed, we were able to get cuts through the wood. Let's try engraving on plywood. If you have taken a look at some of our prior reviews on lower power machines, plywood is usually a hit or miss. Because the material is not consistent, sometimes we don't get clean engravings. So let's see what the iKier K1 Pro Max 48 watt can do. We were very pleased with the engraving results. As you can see here, at about 30–40% power and a faster speed, we get some beautiful even engraving. We haven't seen much of this with other lower powered lasers. Let's try a cutting test on plywood. Here are our results. We got some pretty clean cuts at 100% power and 10 speed. Alright, now let's try engraving on black acrylic. This material usually does very well on Engraving Test. It's very versatile and easy to use. We love using it for a wide range of applications, from decorations to models, etc. It does really well. So let's see what the iKier K1 Pro Max 48 watt can do. And here are our results. You can see we had some pretty good engraving. At a lower power, higher speed, we get some of the cleanest lines here. Let's also do a cutting test on black acrylic. We also got some pretty good cuts in this test. You can see here at higher power, lower speed, we did get some clean cut throughs. Let's try the galvanized sheet metal. We usually don't have a lot of luck with this material, so we didn't really get our hopes up, but we're definitely crossing our fingers. The iKier K1 Pro Max was able to market, which is a once in a blue moon for the laser engravers that we've tested in the past. For our next test, we're going to attempt cutting through stone. In our previous attempts with other machines, we have not been able to cut through the stone. We are usually able to just mark it. We chose our intricate Celtic Knot design to attempt cutting through this material. This will add a very high level of complexity for this test. We were pleasantly surprised to see that the iKier Pro Max 48 watt was able to actually cut all the way through the stone, making a beautiful design. This is about 100 brownie points over other laser machines. For this next test, we're going to be using the R1 Rotary Chuck. This is an accessory and it's sold separately from the machine. It's currently retailing about $170 and it allows you to do just this: engrave on spherical objects. Here we have a painted stainless steel cup. We got some very good results from engraving on this stainless steel cup. It's always interesting to see the colors that are brought out by the laser when exposed to different power and speed. You can use this to your advantage on your designs. When engraving spherical objects, it's very important to keep the item leveled. That way you get consistent results. This chuck allows you to angle the object. That way you can ensure that it's leveled. Let's engrave the Starfield logo. In this test, we engraved the Starfield logo using different settings to achieve a multicolored logo. We were able to get some color variation throughout the image, as you can see here. For our next test, we'll be engraving a hematite ring on the Rotary Chuck. We'll be putting in our Space Age Tech logo. As you can see here, we had some pretty good results with the engraving of the Space Age Tech logo. We would have liked it to be a little bit more clear or deeper. However, when you expose this material to a higher power or speed, it tends to crack and break. So this is what we got. What do you think? Now let's try to engrave on a stainless steel ring and see how that compares to our previous test. You can see this is definitely much nicer. Stainless steel always gives us a pretty good result. Now we'll try something a little bit different. This time we're going to be engraving the inside of the stainless steel ring. We were pleasantly surprised with this one as well, because we were able to engrave not only the outside of the ring, but also the inside. The chuck allows you to adjust the position, so you're able to achieve this result. Next up, we attempted to engrave something fully spherical, and here's what we have, a tennis ball. You can see we're getting quite a lot of burning in this test. In reality, we should have attempted to do this with a smaller test area and centered or positioned it a little bit better to get more accurate results. This might be a really good place for us to start talking about safety. The iKier K1 Pro Max 48 watt has a flame detection system that will sound an alarm and send a notification to a mobile device in the event of a flame detection. The laser module will also automatically return to its original position. Additionally, we have a child safety lock, and this one prevents the machine from accidental activation, ensuring that safety of your household members, especially if you have kids, of course. After figuring out our settings, we engraved the Space Age Tech logo on the ball. We kept our engraving area fairly small so the laser can keep focus on the object. And they came out great. This is a great idea if you're personalizing items for sale. You can perhaps engrave a team's name or the star player's name, what have you. This would be a really nice gift for anyone playing this sport. And we're continuing with our sphere theme today. Now you can see we have a baseball that we are doing an engraving test on. And we're going to use the settings to engrave the Space Age Tech logo again. We kept the same area to keep focus on the actual design. By keeping the engraving area focused, we were able to engrave the whole Space Age Tech logo in this baseball. You can see we had a pretty good result. The lines are nice and sharp. And it's just to give you an idea of the kind of things that you can do with spherical products, but also leather products. Like you can apply this to keychains or wallets, etc. And here's another idea. Now that the holidays are closer than we think, this is actually a Christmas ornament that we're engraving on. We were able to successfully run our test. We ended up choosing the Celtic Knot design to engrave on this sphere. Let's see how it turns out. I mainly chose this design because of its intricacy and the accuracy needed to engrave something like this successfully. So we are checking this to see if there's any distortion in the design or anything that would make it unusable if we were to offer this as a product. Lucky for us, we were able to get pretty good results on this design. The lines are pretty sharp. There is some variation on the material itself, but the engraving part went great. For our last test, we decided to engrave on a ceramic cut. We wanted to see if we can mark this cup to have a custom design. As you can see, the results look promising. Some of these engravings are the right depth, not to drill into the ceramic, but just to take off the glaze. So we're going to try our Celtic Knot design and see how that turns out. With this type of material, we want to make sure that there is no distortion in the design. Unfortunately, on this item, we did get some sort of elongation or distortion on the actual design. As you can see here, we actually lasered through the ceramic, which we didn't intend on doing. Let's review what we've engraved so far and how it's performed. One of the most impressive tests here is the galvanized steel. Through the testing of many laser engravers that you can review on our channel, we haven't been able to mark this material very often. We like that it's so promising that we can use this. We were definitely pleasantly surprised. Up next, we have the acrylic engraving and cutting. You can see here that it performed very well. In fact, the iKier K1 Pro Max 48 watts is actually able to cut through 19 millimeters of acrylic. Plywood was also a very pleasant surprise. We were impressed at the type of consistency we can get from this material, whereas other laser engravers tend to not do a very good job, and we tend to gravitate more towards MDF for any type of project because we can get better consistency out of it. So this is amazing. All right, this is MDF and it usually performs really well. You can see that's no exception here. Definitely we have to use a lower power and a little bit of a higher speed when engraving this material, but it did quite well, as well as the actual cutting. This is our engraving test on the tennis ball. As you can see, we were not very successful. We did get some burning, a lot of fumes, and that's why we always recommend having this type of machine in an enclosure with enough ventilation so you're not inhaling all those fumes. The good thing is that this machine does have fire detection system. It will sound an alarm and it will stop if it detects fire. And our baseball here, you can see we had a little bit of burning, but with the right settings we can do a pretty nice engraving. These are our results from our sphere. You can see here we have an engraving of the Celtic Knot. It turned out very well. It gives you an idea of the kind of things you can do with this machine. If you're doing something to personalize Christmas gifts, this would be a great idea. We also tried to engrave on this glazed mug. While the tests were pretty good, due to the shape of the object, we weren't able to get a great engraving of the Celtic Knot. We actually ended up engraving into the ceramic, which we most likely don't want to do because then it compromises the structure of the actual cup and it might become brittle. So there's a little bit of playing around to do with this type of material. Lastly, we have our stainless steel tumbler. We were really happy with the engraving results. You can definitely see a wide spectrum of colors that you can gather just from stainless steel. It's always a great material to engrave. All in all, we loved working and experimenting with this machine. We were able to engrave on a wide range of materials. So the possibilities for this machine are pretty much endless. So much so that we are replacing our X tool with this machine. And this was the iKier K1 Pro Max 48 watt. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps our channel grow.